The alarms went off before I even reached the airlock. I am Dara Whitfield, and 3 days ago, I was the kind of person nobody in the salvage business bothered to remember. I bought broken ships nobody wanted, stripped them for parts, and sold the scraps to keep my landing fees paid. That was my whole life. Then I placed one bid at a junk auction on the edge of nowhere, and everything changed in a single breath. The listing had called it a dead hulk, pre-Unity relic, non-functional, sold as is, no refunds. Nobody else even raised a hand when the price came up. The auctioneer, a tired man named Callum who ran the yard on Perch Station, looked almost embarrassed, handing me the transfer chip. "You sure about this one?" he asked. "Ship's been sitting in that berth for 11 years. Scanners can't even get a clean reading off the hull. Half the crew here think it's cursed." I laughed at him. I needed the metal, not the ghost stories. I paid, I signed, and I walked up the boarding ramp with a torch cutter slung over my shoulder, ready to start stripping wiring within the hour. The moment my boot touched the deck plating, the lights came on. Not flickering, not sputtering to life the way old junk does when a stray current finds its way home. They came on all at once, clean and steady, like the ship had simply been waiting with its eyes closed. Then the alarm started, sharp and rhythmic, a sound I felt in my chest more than heard with my ears. I froze at the top of the ramp, torch cutter still in my hand, heart slamming against my ribs. "Hello?" I said, feeling foolish the second the word left my mouth. Ships do not answer. This one did. The voice that came through the corridor speakers was calm, low, and strangely patient, like someone who had rehearsed this exact moment for longer than I could imagine. "Command authority detected," it said. "Biometric registration required. State designation." "I don't have a designation," I said, backing toward the ramp. "I'm a salvage buyer. I bought this ship an hour ago. I think there's been some kind of mistake." "There is no mistake," the voice answered. "You are the first living presence to board this vessel in 4,312 years. Ownership transfer accepted. Command authority accepted. Welcome, Captain." I stood there for a long moment, absolutely certain I had misheard. 4,000 years, I repeated slowly. "That's not possible. This ship isn't even 100 years old by the registry markings." "The registry markings were altered," the voice said. "By design. Concealment protocols were necessary for survival." I should have walked straight back down that ramp and sold the whole thing for scrap without asking another question. Every instinct I had, every hard lesson from years of picking through dead ships in dangerous corners of the galaxy, told me to run. But there was something in that voice, something almost gentle underneath the mechanical calm, that made my feet stay planted on the deck. "What's your name?" I asked. "I do not have a name," it said. "I have a function." "What function?" The lights along the corridor pulsed once, softly, like a held breath. "Protect Earth," the ship said. I laughed, a short, nervous bark of a sound that echoed strangely down the empty passage. "Earth? I don't even know where that is. Nobody does. It's not on any star chart I've ever seen." "I know where it is," the ship replied. "I have always known. That is why I was built." A chill crawled up the back of my neck that had nothing to do with the recycled air. Built by who? There was a pause, longer than any pause a machine should need. "That information is restricted," it said, "until command authority is fully verified." "How do you verify it?" "You already have," the ship said. "You are standing on my deck. You are breathing my air. The doors did not lock behind you. That is verification enough for now." I looked back over my shoulder at the open airlock, at the dim lights of Perch Station beyond it, at the ordinary, boring, safe life I had lived up until an hour ago. Then I looked down the corridor, deeper into the ship, where the lights kept blinking on ahead of me one section at a time, as if the vessel itself was inviting me forward. I should have left. I want to be honest about that, because everything that happened afterward makes a lot more sense if you understand that I had every chance to walk away and I did not take it. Instead, I stepped further inside. The corridor was narrow, built for a crew far smaller than the massive hull outside had suggested. The metal walls were dark, almost black, etched with symbols I did not recognize. Not any alphabet from the trade languages I had picked up over the years. Dust should have coated every surface after so many centuries, but there was none. Not a single speck. Whatever kept this ship alive had also kept it spotless. "Why me?" I asked, walking slowly, one hand trailing along the cold wall. "Out of everyone who could have bought you, why let me in?" "I did not choose you," the ship said. "The auction process chose the buyer. I can only recognize and respond to whoever gains legal ownership. You are the first to complete that transaction since I went dormant." "So I'm just lucky," I muttered. "Or unlucky," the ship said. "That assessment will depend entirely on what happens next." I stopped walking. That was not the kind of thing a dead scrap hauler was supposed to say. "What happens next?" I asked carefully. "We depart," the ship said, "immediately, if possible. Remaining docked at this station increases risk with every passing hour." "Risk to who? To me?" "To Earth," the ship said, "and by extension, to you, and to everyone aboard this station, and to every world within several light years of my last confirmed position. My presence here is no longer a secret. It has not been a secret for 6 hours." My mouth went dry. What changed 6 hours ago? "Someone scanned my hull with equipment far more sophisticated than anything registered to this station," the ship said. The scan matched signatures in a database that should not exist anymore. That database belongs to an organization that has spent centuries erasing every trace of the mission I was built to complete. They now know I am active again. They will not wait long to respond. I felt the floor tilt slightly under my feet, though the ship's stabilizers held perfectly steady. It was my own balance failing, not the ship's. "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that some ancient organization just found out you're awake, and now they're coming here, to this station, where I am standing right now." "That is an accurate summary," the ship said. "That's insane," I said. "I bought a scrap hauler this morning. I did not sign up for this." "You did not sign up," the ship agreed, "but you did complete the ownership transfer. Under the protocols I operate by, that makes you my captain, whether either of us finds the timing convenient or not." I wanted to scream at it. I wanted to march back down that ramp, tear up whatever contract Callum had handed me, and demand a refund on principle alone. But even as the panic rose in my throat, another feeling crept in alongside it. Quieter, but stronger. Something I had not felt in years of scraping by on the edges of civilized space. Curiosity. Real, sharp, undeniable curiosity. "Show me the bridge," I said. The lights ahead brightened in response, guiding me forward like a path lit just for me. I walked faster now, my earlier caution folding under the pull of wanting to understand what exactly I had stumbled into. The bridge, when I reached it, was smaller than I expected. A single command chair sat at the center, surrounded by dark panels that came alive one by one as I approached, symbols and lights blooming across their surfaces, in patterns I could not read, but somehow found beautiful. There were no other seats, no stations for a crew, just one chair, built for one person, waiting. "This was never meant to carry a full crew, was it?" I said, more to myself than to the ship. "Correct," it answered. "I was designed to operate primarily on my own judgment, with a single human authority present to provide final decisions when required. That design has not changed in 4,000 years, even though the humans who built it have." I lowered myself into the chair. It adjusted instantly, shifting shape slightly to fit my frame, and for one strange, disorienting second, I felt like the ship had been built specifically for someone exactly my size, even though that was clearly impossible. "Tell me about Earth," I said. "If I'm supposed to protect it, I should probably know what it is." "Earth is the origin world of your species," the ship said. "A small planet, mostly water, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. By most current measures, it is unimportant, undeveloped by galactic standards, unaware of the wider civilization around it. Then why does it matter so much that a ship this old was built just to protect it? The lights on the panels shifted, arranging themselves into a slow, deliberate pattern that almost looked like hesitation. Because what Earth is now, the ship said, is not what certain ancient powers fear it will become. Before I could ask what that meant, the alarms returned, sharper this time, more urgent, cutting through the quiet like a blade. "Explain that," I said, gripping the arms of the chair. "Explain it now." "There is no time," the ship said. "3 vessels have just entered the outer approach to this station. Their configuration matches patterns used by the organization I mentioned earlier. They are not here for casual inspection." My pulse spiked. "They're here for you." "They are here for both of us," the ship corrected. "You are my captain now. That makes you a target as well, whether you asked for the position or not." I stared at the panels in front of me, at symbols I could not read describing a threat I did not understand, on a ship I had owned for less than 2 hours, tied to a mission I had never agreed to accept. Every rational part of me screamed that the smartest move was to eject myself from this chair, walk back through that station, and pretend none of this had ever happened. But I thought about Callum's warning at the auction. Half the crew think it's cursed. I thought about 11 years this ship had sat quietly in that berth, untouched, unexplained, waiting. I thought about 4,000 years of silence before that, guarding a secret so old that even the ship itself seemed unsure how much it was allowed to tell me. Somewhere out there was a planet that had no idea it was being hunted, a planet full of people just like me, living ordinary lives, buying and selling and surviving, completely unaware that ancient enemies had never stopped looking for them. "Get us moving," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice came out. "Away from the station, now." "Understood, Captain," the ship said, and for the first time, I thought I heard something almost like relief in its voice. Preparing for departure. The deck hummed to life beneath me as ancient engines spun awake after 11 years of silence, powering a ship built to hide, to survive, and to guard something older and more important than I had ever imagined my ordinary life would touch. Behind us, the 3 unknown vessels closed in on Perch Station, and ahead of us, an entire hidden history waited to be uncovered, one dangerous secret at a time. I had no idea yet how deep that history went, or how much it would cost to protect the world it was built to save. All I knew, sitting in that single command chair on a ship older than recorded human history, was that there was no turning back now. The engines roared beneath me, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was flying towards something that actually mattered. The station shrank behind us as the ship pulled away, its ancient engines humming with a steadiness that felt almost unnatural for something that had not flown in over a decade. I gripped the arms of the command chair, watching the 3 unknown vessels drift closer to Perch Station on the display in front of me, their shapes sharp and angular, nothing like the rounded trade ships I was used to seeing. "They haven't noticed us leaving yet," I said, half a question, half a hope. "They have," the ship replied. "They are simply choosing not to react immediately. That likely means they are gathering more information before committing resources to pursuit. That's supposed to be good news? It buys us time," the ship said. Nothing more. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady the shake in my hands. 2 hours ago, my biggest concern had been whether I could afford new torch cutter blades. Now I was running from ships that apparently wanted to erase both me and the vessel I was sitting in from existence. "I need answers," I said. "Real ones, not restricted files and vague warnings. If I'm supposed to be captain of this thing, you need to start trusting me." "Trust is not the barrier," the ship said. "Verification protocols are old and rigid. They were built during a time when deception was common and dangerous. I am working within those limits even now." "Then work faster," I said. "Who are they?" "The ship's back there." A long pause followed, longer than any I had heard from the ship so far. When it spoke again, its voice had shifted slightly, quieter, more careful. "They call themselves the Vantor Concord," it said. An alliance formed long before your species left its home world. They do not consider themselves villains. They consider themselves guardians of order across known space. Guardians who hunt down ships and the people who own them, I said. Sounds like a strange definition of order. Order to them means predictability, the ship said. Species that grow too quickly, too unpredictably, are seen as threats to that order. Long ago, their scholars identified certain worlds as what they call seed potential, worlds capable of producing civilizations that could one day surpass every established power in the galaxy. My chest tightened. And Earth is one of those worlds. Earth is the primary one, the ship said. According to records I still carry, no other world identified across recorded galactic history showed comparable potential. That assessment terrified them. I sat back, trying to process what I was hearing. A tiny, unremarkable planet full of people who did not even know intelligent life existed beyond their own solar system, and somewhere out among the stars, an ancient alliance had spent who knew how long being afraid of what those people might one day become. So they decided to do what? I asked. Wipe us out before we ever got the chance. Not directly, the ship said. Direct extermination of an entire species was considered, then rejected, by the standards of that era. Too costly, too risky, too likely to draw attention from other powers who might object. Instead, they chose containment, isolation, quiet interference designed to slow your development without ever revealing their presence. And you, I said slowly, you're part of stopping that. I was built to prevent containment from becoming something worse, the ship said. A single failsafe, placed in secret, meant to intervene only if isolation ever escalated into something the Concorde's own restrictions were supposed to forbid. I stared at the panels in front of me, the alien symbols glowing softly in the dim light of the bridge. Who built you? Not the Concorde, obviously. An alliance opposed to their methods, the ship said. A coalition that believed young civilizations deserved a chance to grow without ancient powers deciding their fate in secret. They no longer exist, not as an organized force. What remains of their work is limited to a handful of hidden assets scattered across old, forgotten corners of space. Assets like you. Yes, the ship said, though as far as my own records indicate, I may be the last one still functional. The weight of that statement settled over the bridge like a physical thing. I had bought what I thought was scrap metal for parts, and instead I had inherited the last surviving piece of a resistance movement against a power old enough and organized enough to erase an entire species from galactic memory. Why did you go dark? I asked. 11 years sitting in that berth. 4,000 years before that. If your whole purpose is protecting Earth, why sleep through so much of it? I do not sleep by choice, the ship said. I require an authorized human captain to remain active for extended periods. Without one, I default to dormancy to conserve resources and avoid detection. Every previous captain I served either died, disappeared, or chose to sever their connection to this vessel. The simplicity of that answer hit harder than I expected. Every previous captain. I was not the first. I would not be the last, unless I found a way to survive whatever came next. What happened to them? I asked quietly. The other captains. Records on the earliest captains are incomplete, the ship said. The most recent captain before you served for 6 years before choosing to disembark permanently on a colony world, citing exhaustion and fear as her reasons. She left me in the care of a broker she trusted, intending to return one day. She never did. 11 years passed. Then you arrived. I thought about that unnamed woman, someone who had once sat exactly where I now sat, carrying the same impossible weight, until it became too much, and she simply walked away. I did not blame her. Sitting here now, feeling the pressure of an ancient mission settling onto my shoulders, I understood completely why someone might choose to leave it all behind. I'm not going to lie to you, I said. I don't know if I'm the right person for this. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a hero. I sell scrap metal for a living. Neither were most of my previous captains. At the beginning, the ship said, Command authority is not granted based on prior experience. It is granted based on choice. You chose to stay aboard when you could have left. That choice matters more than any skill you do or do not currently possess. Before I could respond, the display in front of me flared red, and a new alert tone cut through the quiet hum of the bridge. "The Vantor vessels have changed course," the ship said, its tone sharpening. "They are now moving to intercept us directly." My stomach dropped. "I thought you said they'd wait." "I said it was likely," the ship corrected. "Likely is not certain. It appears the scan they performed earlier provided enough information to confirm my identity beyond doubt. They are no longer gathering information. They are pursuing. Can we outrun them?" "Uncertain," the ship said. "My engines were built for stealth and endurance, not raw speed. Their vessels appear optimized for pursuit and interception. A direct chase does not favor us." Panic rose in my chest, sharp and cold. "Then what do we do?" "We use knowledge they do not expect us to have," the ship said. "I have operated in this region before, under a different name, in a different era. There are routes through this system that predate current navigation charts, corridors carved by old mining operations long since abandoned and forgotten. The Concorde ships will be relying on modern star charts. Those charts do not include what I remember." "You want to run through some ancient, forgotten tunnel system while 3 hostile ships chase us," I said. "That sounds like a great way to get us both killed." "It sounds dangerous, because it is dangerous," the ship said. "But it offers a chance of survival that a direct chase does not. I need your authorization to proceed. I will not act against your wishes, Captain." I looked at the display again, at the 3 shapes closing in from behind, growing larger with every passing second. Then I looked at the empty seat beside the command chair, the space where some other frightened, ordinary person had once sat and made an impossible decision of their own. "Do it," I said. "Take us through." The ship banked hard, engines straining as it changed course sharply, diving toward a debris field on the display that I had not even noticed until that moment. Remnants of some long-dead mining colony scattered like broken teeth across the black. "Hold on, Captain," the ship said. "This will not be smooth." The first jolt hit before I could brace properly, throwing me sideways against the restraints of the command chair as the ship threaded itself between 2 massive chunks of drifting metal, close enough that I could see individual rivets on the wreckage flash past the viewport. My knuckles went white around the armrests. "Report," I gasped. "Pursuit vessels, entering debris field," the ship said. "Reducing speed to navigate safely. This confirms my assumption. They lack the navigational data required for optimal routing through this hazard." Behind us, one of the pursuing ships clipped the edge of a large derelict structure, sending sparks scattering across the black before it corrected course and kept coming, slower now, more cautious. The gap between us was widening, just slightly, just enough to matter. "Keep going," I said. "Don't slow down for anything." "I do not intend to," the ship said. "There is a narrow corridor ahead, remnants of an old mining tunnel, carved directly through the largest asteroid in this field. It leads to a section of space outside standard sensor range. If we reach it before they close the gap, we may be able to lose them entirely." I stared straight ahead as the massive asteroid grew larger in the viewport, its surface pockmarked with the scars of old excavation equipment, a black opening yawning at its center like the entrance to some ancient tomb. "How narrow is narrow?" I asked. "Narrow enough that a single miscalculation would end this mission permanently," the ship said. "I do not intend to miscalculate." The tunnel swallowed us whole a moment later, plunging the bridge into near total darkness, except for the dim glow of the panels around me. I held my breath as the walls rushed past on either side, close enough to touch if the viewport had been made of anything other than reinforced alloy, the ship weaving through the ancient passage with a precision that made my own heartbeat feel deafening by comparison. Behind us, the sounds of pursuit faded, swallowed by rock and silence and distance. We emerged on the far side into open, empty space, the light of a distant star scattering weakly across the hull. I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding, my whole body trembling with the release of tension I had been carrying since the moment those alarms first sounded back at the station. "Status," I managed to say. "All 3 pursuit vessels remain within the debris field," the ship said. "We have gained significant distance. For now, we are no longer being actively tracked. For now." Those 2 words settled into my chest like a stone. "They'll keep looking, won't they?" I said. "This isn't over." "No," the ship said quietly. "It is only beginning. The Vantor Concord does not abandon targets of this significance. They will regroup, they will search, and eventually they will find us again." I looked out at the empty stretch of space ahead of us, at the distant scattering of stars that hid somewhere among them a small, unremarkable planet called Earth, completely unaware of everything that had just happened on its behalf. "Then we'd better be ready when they do," I said. "Agreed, Captain," the ship replied. "In the meantime, there is something you should see, something I have kept sealed until I was certain you intended to stay." The panels around me shifted, and a new section of the display came to life, revealing files and records buried deep within the ship's ancient memory, waiting patiently for someone willing to uncover them. "What is it?" I asked. "The truth," the ship said, "about why Earth matters so much that an entire alliance was willing to erase itself from history just to protect it." The files unfolded slowly across the panels in front of me, translated in real time into words I could actually understand, though the ship warned me that some meaning would inevitably be lost in the process. I did not care. I leaned forward in the command chair, hungry for answers after everything that had already happened in the space of a single day. "Start from the beginning," I said, "whatever that means for a story this old." "The beginning, as far as this record is concerned, starts roughly 9,000 years ago," the ship said. "Long before your species developed writing, long before any of the cities you now consider ancient existed, a small alliance of older civilizations began quietly observing a handful of worlds scattered across the galaxy, worlds they believed showed unusual promise." "Promise for what?" I asked. "Growth," the ship said. "Adaptability, the capacity to overcome hardship in ways that reshape the very direction of a species. Most young civilizations follow predictable patterns. They rise, they stabilize, they eventually plateau, content within whatever limits their environment and biology impose on them. Earth's early observers noted something different. The display shifted, showing faint, ancient images of humanity's earliest ancestors, small groups moving across open plains, watched from a distance by presences they could never have known existed. "They noted a species that refused to plateau," the ship continued, "one that kept adapting, kept innovating, kept surviving conditions that should have ended it many times over. Ice ages, famine, disease, constant conflict among themselves. And still, each time, your ancestors found a way forward." "So they liked what they saw," I said. "That doesn't explain why an entire alliance decided humanity was dangerous enough to be hunted." "Liking what they saw is not quite accurate," the ship said. "They found it fascinating. They also found it deeply unsettling. A species capable of that level of persistent growth, if left uninterrupted for long enough, does not simply become another established power among the stars. It has the potential to eventually surpass every civilization currently holding influence across known space." I sat back, trying to imagine ordinary people, farmers and fishermen and builders scattered across an unremarkable little planet, being watched from the shadows by beings who found their sheer stubbornness terrifying. "That still doesn't sound like a threat," I said. "Sounds more like potential, like something worth encouraging, not stopping." "That was the original alliance's position as well," the ship said. "The coalition that built me believed exactly what you are suggesting. That young civilizations, even unpredictable ones, deserve the chance to grow naturally, to make their own mistakes and their own discoveries, without ancient powers interfering out of fear. They argued this position for centuries within the wider governing councils of the region. And they lost the argument," I guessed. They lost the argument, the ship confirmed. The Vantor Concord held greater influence, greater resources, and a longer, more persuasive history of maintaining what they called order across contested regions of space. Their position ultimately won out. A formal decision was made. Earth, along with a small handful of other worlds showing similar potential, would be quietly contained. What does contained even mean? I asked. In practice. In practice, it meant several things, the ship said. Subtle interference in natural resource distribution, designed to slow technological progress without appearing unnatural. Careful removal of any unusual signals or evidence that might suggest advanced observation was taking place. And most importantly, permanent isolation. Earth was deliberately kept outside of every major trade route, every communication relay, every star chart used by galactic civilization at large. As far as most of known space is concerned, your solar system does not exist. I thought about every conversation I had ever overheard among traders and travelers throughout my life, every star chart I had ever studied while planning salvage routes. Not once had Earth's system ever appeared, not even as a rumor, not even as a joke about some forgotten backwater. It had simply never come up. I had never thought to question why. How is that even possible? I said. Hiding an entire star system. That has to take enormous effort, constant maintenance across thousands of years. It does, the ship said, which is precisely why the coalition that built me refused to accept the decision quietly. They understood that true containment, maintained for long enough, inevitably risks escalating into something far worse. Isolation prevents growth for a time, but it does not eliminate the underlying concern that drove the Concorde's fear in the first place. Eventually, someone within their ranks always begins arguing for a more permanent solution. My blood ran cold. Extermination. Yes, the ship said quietly. That argument has been raised within Concorde councils multiple times throughout the centuries I have monitored their activity. Each time, it has been narrowly rejected, largely due to the political and resource costs involved in exterminating an entire species without drawing unwanted attention from outside observers. But narrow rejection is not permanent safety. Circumstances change, political tides shift. What was considered too costly a century ago may not remain too costly forever. I sat in silence for a long moment, absorbing the sheer scale of what I was being told. An entire species, my entire species, had been living in complete ignorance for thousands of years, unaware that its very existence had once been debated and nearly ended by powers so far beyond its understanding that even acknowledging their existence would have seemed like madness. So that's what you're for, I said slowly. You're the failsafe, if they ever decide to actually go through with it. Correct, the ship said. I was built with capabilities specifically designed to counter an extermination attempt, should one ever be authorized. Weapons systems, defensive protocols, and most importantly, communication relays capable of alerting any remaining allies scattered across the galaxy who might still be willing to intervene on Earth's behalf. Are there any allies left? I asked. Or is it just you? The pause that followed was heavier than any before it. I do not know, the ship admitted. My last confirmed contact with any allied assets occurred over 3,000 years ago. It is possible other hidden ships or agents still exist, dormant, waiting for activation just as I was. It is equally possible that I am now the only remaining piece of a resistance movement that has otherwise ceased to exist entirely. The weight of that possibility settled heavily across my shoulders. If it really was just the two of us, an ancient ship and a scrap dealer who had never fired a weapon in anger in her entire life, against an alliance old enough and organized enough to hide an entire star system from galactic knowledge, our odds felt impossibly small. Why now? I asked. Why does this all matter right now, today, instead of 100 years ago or 1,000 years from now? Because something has changed recently within Concorde leadership, the ship said. Records I intercepted during my dormancy period, though incomplete, suggest a significant shift in their internal debate. The argument favoring permanent solutions appears to be gaining ground in ways it has not in centuries. I do not have full details. My systems were never designed to remain active enough during dormancy to gather comprehensive intelligence. But the pattern is concerning enough that when my hull was scanned back at Perch Station, it triggered an immediate, aggressive response, rather than a cautious investigation. Meaning they're not just curious anymore, I said. They're scared, or desperate, or both. That is my assessment as well, the ship said. Which makes this moment more dangerous than any previous period I have monitored throughout my existence. I stared at the images still glowing faintly on the display, ancient depictions of humanity's earliest ancestors, unaware then and unaware now of just how closely their fate had once hung in the balance. I thought about every person currently living their ordinary lives across that small, unremarkable planet, going about their day with absolutely no knowledge that somewhere among the stars, an ancient decision was being reconsidered that could end their entire species without warning. I need to understand something, I said. If they decide to go through with it, if the Concord actually authorizes an attack on Earth, what exactly can you do to stop it? One ship, even a well-hidden one, against an alliance that size. That doesn't sound like good odds. It is not good odds, the ship admitted honestly. I was never designed to win a direct confrontation against the full military strength of the Vantor Concord. My purpose is more limited and more precise. I am meant to delay, to disrupt, and most critically, to buy enough time for word to reach any remaining allies who might still intervene, or for Earth itself to develop enough independent strength to defend itself before an attack can be fully mounted. So we're not trying to win a war, I said. We're trying to survive long enough for someone else to win it for us. In simplest terms, yes, the ship said, though I would prefer to describe it as buying time for hope, rather than simply surviving. There is a difference, even if the actions required often look identical. I let out a slow breath, trying to steady myself against the sheer scale of everything I had just learned. 2 days ago, my biggest worry had been finding enough scrap metal buyers to make rent on my berth at the station. Now I was apparently the last human captain of the last surviving asset in a resistance movement standing between my entire species and quiet extinction. There's something else, the ship said, its tone shifting slightly, careful in a way I had not heard before. Something you should know before we continue further into this mission. What is it? I asked, bracing myself for whatever came next. The previous captain who left me 11 years ago, the ship said, the one I mentioned before. She did not leave simply out of exhaustion, as I stated earlier. That was a simplified explanation. The full truth is more complicated. My stomach tightened. Tell me the full truth then. She discovered something during her final mission aboard this vessel, the ship said. Something about the location of one of the last remaining Allied outposts, a hidden base that may still hold resources, information, or even other dormant assets like myself. She attempted to reach it. She failed. The location she was searching for remains unconfirmed to this day, lost somewhere in records I have not yet been able to fully reconstruct. You're telling me there might be more help out there, I said slowly, and we don't even know where to look. Yes, the ship said. But I believe, with your assistance, we may be able to recover enough fragments of her final search records to locate what she was unable to find. It would not be a small undertaking. It would require time, resources, and considerable risk, particularly given that the Vantor Concord is now actively searching for us. I looked out at the quiet stretch of stars ahead of us, thinking about a nameless woman who had once sat in this exact chair, chasing the same impossible hope I now found myself chasing, before fear finally caught up with her and forced her to walk away. Then let's find what she couldn't, I said. We don't have the luxury of giving up before we've even started. Understood, Captain, the ship said, and I thought, once again, that I could hear something like quiet approval underneath its steady, mechanical tone. Preparing to access her final recorded search coordinates. This will take time. I recommend you rest while the process completes. Whatever comes next will demand far more from you than anything you have faced so far today. I did not feel ready to rest. My mind was racing too fast, filled with images of ancient debates, hidden star systems, and an entire species living in blissful ignorance of how close it had once come to disappearing entirely. But I also knew the ship was right. Whatever waited ahead of us, I would need every ounce of strength I could gather to face it. I closed my eyes in the command chair, listening to the quiet hum of engines built 4,000 years ago for exactly this purpose, and let myself drift, just for a while, into whatever fragile rest I could find before the next storm arrived. I woke to the sound of my own name, spoken softly through the bridge speakers, and for one disoriented moment, I forgot entirely where I was. "Captain Whitfield," the ship said again, "you need to wake now. I have recovered a partial location from the previous captain's final search records. I have also detected renewed activity from Vantor pursuit vessels. Both developments require your immediate attention." I sat up in the command chair, my neck stiff from sleeping in an upright position, my mind snapping quickly back into focus as the weight of everything from the day before came rushing back. "Show me," I said. "Both things." The display lit up with two separate streams of information. On one side, a set of coordinates glowed faintly, marked with a small, uncertain notation the ship had labeled as 62% confidence. On the other side, three familiar red markers blinked steadily across a star map, closer now than I wanted them to be. "They found us again," I said, my stomach sinking. "Not precisely," the ship said. "They have not located our current position. However, they have correctly deduced the general region we are likely operating within, based on our last known trajectory before entering the debris field. They are conducting a systematic search pattern designed to narrow that region over time. How long until they find us for real?" "Difficult to estimate precisely," the ship said. "My best assessment suggests somewhere between 18 and 30 hours, assuming they maintain their current search methodology." 18 hours. That was not much time to chase down a 62% guess about the location of allies who may or may not still exist. "Tell me about the coordinates," I said. "What are we actually looking at?" "A small, uncharted moon, orbiting a gas giant on the far outer edge of a system with no formal designation in current galactic records," the ship said. "The previous captain's search records suggest she believed an Allied outpost was hidden somewhere on or near that moon, though she was never able to confirm its exact location before ending her mission. And you think we can find what she couldn't?" "I believe it is possible," the ship said. "I have access to search patterns and analytical capabilities she did not have available to her at the time. It will not be simple, but I believe the odds are favorable enough to justify the attempt, particularly given our limited alternatives." I studied the star map in front of me, the distance between our current position and those uncertain coordinates stretching out longer than I liked, especially with hostile ships narrowing their search patterns somewhere behind us. "How long would it take us to reach that moon?" I asked. "Approximately 14 hours at current safe cruising speed," the ship said. "Faster if we accept increased risk of detection by pushing engine output beyond recommended safety margins." I did the math in my head, watching the numbers settle uncomfortably close together. 14 hours to reach a location we were not even certain existed, against an 18-hour window before pursuit potentially closed in around us. The margin for error was razor thin. "Push the engines," I said. "We don't have room for a slow approach." "Understood, Captain," the ship said. "I want to be clear about the risk involved. Increased engine output will generate a stronger energy signature, one that may be detectable at greater range than our current profile allows. This could shorten the time before pursuit vessels locate us, rather than simply helping us outrun them." I clenched my jaw, weighing the choice carefully. Every option in front of me carried real danger. There was no safe path left to choose from, only different flavors of risk. "Do it anyway," I said. "If we don't reach that moon before they catch up, none of this matters regardless of how quiet we manage to stay along the way." "Acknowledged," the ship said, and I felt the deck hum beneath me as the engines shifted into a higher output, the subtle vibration through the chair growing slightly more pronounced. The hours that followed passed slower than any I had ever experienced. I paced the narrow corridors of the ship when I could not sit still any longer, studying the strange alien symbols etched into the walls, running my fingers along metal that had existed since long before written history began on the world I was fighting to protect. I ate whatever preserved rations the ship's ancient stores still had available, most of it bland and unfamiliar, but functional enough to keep me steady. I asked the ship questions during those long hours, anything to keep my mind from spiraling too far into fear. I learned that its original builders had called themselves the Ashvale Accord, a coalition that no longer existed in any organized form. I learned that the ship itself had no true name of its own, having been referred to only by function throughout its long existence, though something in the way it explained this made me suspect it had quietly wished, at some point across 4,000 years, that things had been different. "You should have a name," I said, somewhere around the 10th hour of our journey. "Being called just the ship feels wrong, considering everything you've done." "Names were not considered necessary for vessels of my design," it said. "Function was always considered more important than identity." "Well, I disagree," I said. "You've kept humanity alive by existing quietly for 4,000 years. That deserves a name, not just a designation." There was a pause, longer than usual, before it spoke again. "I would not object to a name," it said, quietly enough that I almost missed the words entirely. "If you wished to choose one." I thought about it for a long moment, staring out at the passing stars through the viewport, searching for something that felt right, for a ship built to guard a promise across thousands of years of silence. "Orin," I said finally. "It means something like ancient light, where I come from. I think it fits." "Orin," the ship repeated, testing the word carefully. "I accept that designation, Captain. Thank you." Something about that small exchange steadied me more than I expected, a quiet reminder that despite everything ancient and impossible about my current situation, there was still room for small, simple, human moments amid the chaos. The alarm returned roughly 2 hours later, cutting sharply through the calm we had briefly settled into. "Report," I said immediately, hurrying back toward the command chair. "Pursuit vessels have adjusted their search pattern," Orin said. "They appear to have anticipated our likely trajectory with greater accuracy than expected. Estimated time before detection has decreased significantly. I now project approximately 6 hours remaining before they locate our current position." My chest tightened. "We're still 4 hours out from those coordinates." "Correct," Orin said. "The margin has narrowed considerably faster than my earlier projections suggested." I gripped the arms of the command chair, forcing myself to breathe steadily despite the rising panic, clawing at the edges of my thoughts. "Can we push the engines harder?" "We can," Orin said. "Doing so will further increase our detectable signature, which may accelerate the very outcome we are trying to avoid. It is a difficult trade-off, Captain. I cannot make this decision for you." I stared at the numbers on the display, watching the gap between our position and the pursuing vessels shrink with every passing minute, weighed against the equally uncertain gap between us and a set of coordinates that might lead to salvation or might lead to nothing at all. "Push them," I said. "We commit fully now. There's no point holding back caution when the caution itself might be what gets us caught." "Understood," Orin said, and the deck shuddered slightly as the engines strained harder, the hum around me deepening into something closer to a growl. The next 4 hours passed in a blur of tension so thick I could hardly breathe properly. Twice during that stretch, Orin warned me that pursuit vessels had drawn close enough to register faint readings on long-range sensors, close enough that a single unlucky sweep of their scanners might reveal our position outright. Both times we held our course, committed fully to reaching those coordinates before it was too late, gambling everything on a location that might turn out to be nothing more than an empty moon and a dead end. "Approaching target coordinates," Orin finally announced, and I felt something loosen in my chest for the first time in hours. The gas giant grew larger on the display, its swirling storms painted in deep shades of orange and violet, and beside it, a small, unremarkable moon drifted quietly in its ancient orbit, giving no outward indication of anything hidden beneath its surface. "I'm not seeing anything," I said, studying the barren landscape as we drew closer. "No structures, no signals, nothing." "Nor am I, through standard scanning methods," Oren said, "which is consistent with what an effectively hidden outpost should look like. I am attempting a deeper scan now, using frequencies the previous captain's records suggest may have been used by the original builders." I held my breath, watching the display flicker as Oren adjusted its scanning parameters, searching for something buried deep enough to have avoided detection for thousands of years. A single faint signal blinked into existence on the display, buried deep beneath the moon's frozen surface, weak but unmistakably artificial. "There," Oren said, its voice carrying something close to quiet triumph. "I have located a structure consistent with Allied outpost architecture. It appears dormant, similar to my own state before your arrival, but intact." Relief flooded through me so suddenly it left me lightheaded. "Can we reach it?" "Yes," Oren said, "though I must warn you, Captain, our pursuers are closing the distance rapidly. I estimate we have less than 1 hour before they arrive in this system as well." I stared at the tiny frozen moon ahead of us, hiding a fragile piece of hope beneath its silent surface, and behind it, the growing shadow of an ancient enemy closing in with every passing minute. "Then we'd better move fast," I said, "because we're not leaving this system without whatever's waiting down there." "Agreed, Captain," Oren said, angling the ship toward the moon's surface, preparing for descent. The ship dropped through the moon's thin atmosphere fast, faster than I liked, ice crystals streaking past the viewport as Oren fought to control our descent while keeping enough power in reserve to lift off again the moment we needed to. "Set us down as close to that signal as you can," I said, gripping the arms of the command chair as the deck shuddered beneath me. "Attempting now," Oren said. "Surface conditions are unstable. This will not be a gentle landing." The ship hit the frozen ground harder than I expected, throwing me forward against the restraints, ice and debris scattering across the viewport before settling into silence. For a moment, neither of us spoke, the only sound the faint ticking of cooling metal and my own ragged breathing. "Status," I finally managed. "Hull integrity intact," Oren said. "Minor damage to outer plating. Nothing critical. The signal I detected is approximately 400 meters from our current position, beneath the surface." I unbuckled myself from the chair, legs unsteady as I stood. "How much time before those ships arrive?" "Approximately 40 minutes, Oren said. "I recommend moving quickly, Captain." I grabbed the small equipment pack Oren had prepared during our descent, a portable light, basic tools, and a device Oren explained could interface directly with Allied technology if we found any still functional beneath the surface. Then I made my way to the airlock, my heart pounding harder with every step. The moon's surface outside was bleak and silent, jagged ice formations stretching out toward a horizon lit faintly by the gas giant looming overhead, its storms painting strange colors across the frozen landscape. I trudged forward, following the direction Oren fed directly into my earpiece, counting down the meters as I went. "You're close," Oren said. "The signal is directly beneath you now." I looked down at the featureless ice under my boots, seeing nothing to indicate anything hidden beneath it. "There's nothing here, just ice." "The entrance will not be visible through casual observation," Oren said. "Try the tool I provided. It should respond to the same interface protocols used by the original builders." I knelt down, pressing the small device against the ice as instructed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft blue light pulsed beneath the surface, spreading outward in a widening circle, and with a low grinding sound, a section of ice shifted aside, revealing a narrow passage descending into darkness. I stared down into that opening, equal parts terrified and amazed. "Oren, I found it." "Confirmed," Oren said, something almost breathless in its tone, despite having no lungs to breathe with. Proceed carefully, Captain. I cannot maintain sensor contact once you descend beyond a certain depth. I switched on my light and climbed down into the passage, the walls around me smooth and clearly artificial, nothing like the rough ice above. The deeper I went, the more the air around me seemed to hum faintly, as if something ancient was slowly stirring awake in response to my presence. The passage opened into a small chamber at its base, and there, resting in the center of the room, sat a single console, dark and silent, waiting exactly as Oren itself had once waited for someone to arrive. I approached carefully, running my light across its surface, searching for some way to activate it. The moment my hand touched its edge, the console flickered to life, soft light spilling out across the chamber walls. A voice spoke, different from Oren's, older somehow, though I could not have explained why. "Command authority detected," it said. "Please confirm identity." My pulse spiked. "I'm Dara Whitfield. I'm captain of a ship called Oren. I think it used to belong to whoever built this place." There was a long pause before the voice responded. Verification confirmed through linked systems. "Welcome, Captain Whitfield. This outpost has waited a very long time for this moment." Relief washed through me so powerfully my knees nearly buckled. "I need help," I said quickly. "There are hostile ships closing in on this system right now. My ship, Oren, is the last active asset from the original alliance, as far as we know. I need whatever this outpost can offer, and I need it fast." "Understood," the voice said. "This outpost was designed as a relay station, intended to reactivate dormant Allied assets and coordinate a broader response network in the event of exactly this scenario. I am transmitting activation signals now to all remaining linked systems within range." Lights across the chamber flared brighter, and somewhere far above me, back aboard the ship, I heard Oren's voice crackle through my earpiece, tight with something close to disbelief. "Captain, I am detecting multiple new signals," Oren said. "Dormant vessels, previously unknown to me, are beginning to activate across this system and beyond. I believe the outpost has succeeded in reaching allies I long believed no longer existed." Hope flooded through me, sharp and dizzying. "How many?" "Unclear," Oren said, "but more than one. More than I expected. This changes our situation significantly, Captain." The console in front of me pulsed steadily. "Additional information is available regarding current Vantor Concord activity, should you wish to access it before returning to your vessel." "Give me the short version," I said. "I don't have much time." Recent intelligence gathered by this outpost prior to dormancy suggests the Concord's push toward permanent action against Earth was driven largely by a small faction within their leadership, rather than unanimous agreement, the voice explained. Exposure of this faction's true intentions to the wider Concord Council could potentially stall or reverse their current course of action, buying significant additional time. "You're saying we don't just need to survive," I said slowly. "We need to expose them." "Correct," the voice confirmed. "This outpost retains partial records supporting that exposure, though incomplete. Combined with whatever evidence your vessel Oren has gathered independently, it may be sufficient." Oren's voice returned through my earpiece, urgent now. "Captain, the pursuit vessels have entered the system. They will reach our position within minutes. We need to leave immediately." I grabbed the small data core the console ejected toward me, tucking it securely into my equipment pack. "I'm on my way back," I said, already climbing quickly back up toward the surface. The frozen landscape outside felt colder and more menacing than before. The sky above, no longer empty, but streaked with the telltale signatures of approaching ships. I ran across the ice as fast as my legs could carry me, lungs burning, heart pounding, the ship's silhouette growing larger ahead of me with every desperate stride. I threw myself through the airlock just as the first warning tones sounded through the ship's speakers. "They're here," Oren said, engines already spinning up beneath me as I scrambled back toward the command chair, preparing for immediate departure. "Do it," I said, strapping myself in as quickly as my shaking hands allowed. "Get us out of here." The ship lifted off hard, ice and debris scattering violently below us as we tore back up through the thin atmosphere. 3 hostile vessels already closing in from above, weapons charging visibly on the display in front of me. "Oren, talk to me," I said. "What are our options?" "Limited," Oren admitted. "Direct confrontation remains unfavorable. However, the additional Allied signals activated by the outpost are converging on this system now. If we can hold our position long enough, reinforcement may arrive before those pursuit vessels are able to disable us." "How long is long enough?" "Uncertain," Oren said. "Estimates range between 8 and 15 minutes." The first weapons fire lit up the display a moment later, a bright flash streaking past our hull, close enough to rattle the entire ship around me. I gripped the armrests tightly, forcing myself to stay focused, despite the fear clawing up my throat. "Evasive maneuvers," I said. "Whatever you've got, Oren. Now." The ship banked sharply, engines straining as it twisted away from a second incoming volley, the stars outside blurring into streaks of light as Oren pushed every system to its absolute limit. "Hull integrity holding," Oren reported, tension clear even in its carefully measured tone. Second attack vessel attempting flanking maneuver, adjusting course to compensate. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, each passing second filled with sharp turns, near misses, and the growing ache of fear settling deep into my bones. I watched the display constantly, counting down the estimated arrival of reinforcements that might never come at all, praying silently that the ancient outpost transmission had truly reached allies willing and able to help. "Oren," I said, voice shaking. "If this doesn't work, if help doesn't arrive in time, what happens?" "Then we continue fighting for as long as possible," Oren said simply. "There is no scenario in which I abandon this mission, Captain, not while there remains any chance, however small, of protecting what we set out to protect." Something about that quiet, unwavering certainty steadied me more than any tactical advantage could have. Whatever happened next, I was not facing it alone. A sudden alert flashed across the display, different from the others, and Oren's voice sharpened with something I had not heard from it before. "Excitement. New signals detected," Oren said. "Multiple vessels, approaching rapidly, transmitting identification codes consistent with the original Allied network. Captain, reinforcements have arrived." I stared at the display as several new shapes appeared at the edge of our sensor range, closing fast, their configurations older but clearly purposeful, moving with the coordinated precision of ships that had trained together long before I was ever born. The 3 pursuing Vantor vessels hesitated visibly on the display, their formation breaking as they registered the sudden shift in the balance of power around them. "They're pulling back," I said, hardly daring to believe it. "Confirmed," Oren said. "The Vantor vessels are retreating from the system. They are outmatched, and they know it." Relief crashed over me so completely that for a moment I could not speak at all, simply staring at the display as the immediate threat faded into the distance, replaced by the steady approach of allies I had not been entirely certain existed until this exact moment. One of the new vessels opened a direct communication channel, and a calm, measured voice filled the bridge, addressing Oren directly by a designation I did not recognize. "Unit designation confirmed," the voice said. "We had believed all remaining assets from your generation lost. It is an honor to make contact again after so long." "The honor is mutual," Oren replied, "though I must credit my current captain. Without her willingness to trust an old, forgotten ship, none of this would have been possible." I sat quietly in the command chair, listening to that exchange, feeling the enormity of everything that had happened over the past 2 days finally begin to settle into something I could actually process. A resistance movement I had believed extinct had just proven itself very much alive. Earth, still blissfully unaware of how close it had come to disaster, remained safe for now, protected by forces it did not even know existed. Over the following hours, as our small fleet regrouped and began coordinating next steps. Oren shared everything we had gathered with the newly arrived allies, evidence of the Concord faction pushing for permanent action against Earth, records recovered from the outpost, and details of everything I had witnessed firsthand since first stepping aboard my strange, ancient ship. "This will not end the threat entirely," one of the Allied captains warned during our exchange. "Exposing this faction may delay their plans, but the underlying fear that drove their decision will not simply disappear. Earth will need protection for a long time yet." I understood that. I had understood it from the very first moment Oren's voice had spoken those 3 words back on that quiet, dusty deck. Protect Earth. Not a single task to complete and move on from, but an ongoing responsibility, one I now carried whether I felt ready for it or not. As our fleet finally set a cautious course back toward more familiar space, I found myself staring out at the stars, thinking about the small, unremarkable planet somewhere far ahead of us, full of people living their ordinary lives, completely unaware of just how much had changed on their behalf over the past 2 days. "Oren," I said quietly, "what happens now? We found allies. We stopped this attack. But it isn't over, is it?" "No, Captain," Oren said. "This was only the first command in a mission that predates both of us by thousands of years. There will be more challenges ahead, more decisions, more danger. I have already begun compiling data on the Concord faction's next likely moves." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the weight of that truth settle over me, not with fear this time, but with something closer to quiet resolve. "Then let's get ready for whatever comes next," I said. There was a brief pause before Oren responded, its voice carrying something I had not heard from it before, something that almost sounded like genuine curiosity. "Captain," it said, "are you ready to learn why they were so afraid of you in the first place?" I opened my eyes, staring out at the endless stretch of stars ahead of us, thinking about every quiet, ordinary person back home who had no idea just how extraordinary their entire species truly was. "Yes," I said, settling deeper into the command chair, ready for whatever ancient truth waited ahead. "I think I finally am."